Three, and we're on. Hi everyone, welcome to the Technology for Good Hangout. We're on episode 34. My guest this week is John Taschek. John, am I pronouncing your surname correctly?
You are, thank you.
Excellent. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. I'm John Taschek. I'm the SVP of Strategy at Salesforce.com, and I've been at Salesforce.com 11 years. Prior to that, I was in the press in the publishing field and at PC Week and eWeek magazine.
Okay. And John, you're just coming off the back of a major event this week, Dreamforce. How did that go?
It was a fantastic event. Thank you. There were about 145,000 registered attendees, so the conference took over San Francisco. And if you were anywhere near San Francisco, you might realize that the San Francisco Giants were going for the NL pennant at the same time. So the city was vibrant, to say the least.
Wow. And
the show was excellent. It was a good vibe. We had people related to the show on here. For example, Al Gore spoke yesterday about climate change, and it's not just a technology conference. It's really bringing together a lot of people who have some passion for the industry.
Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear it went well. We'll hit into the stories, John, and as always with this show, we start off with a bit of bad news, kind of setting the scene. Climate-based news, and we go from there into the better news stories, and we'd like to try and end the show on a high note. Again, as always, the hashtag for the show is hashtag #TechForGood, TechForGood. If anyone wants to leave a comment, please do so. So the story, as I said, the first one is this one. According to NASA, September was the warmest month on record, and that comes off the back of August being the hottest August on record as well. So with August being the hottest August on record and September being the hottest September on record, we're on track for 2014 to be the warmest year in the instrumental record. So yeah, the whole climate change thing, basically, you know, it's not a matter of coincidence. It's not. It's real. Every year the temperature gets hotter. We're now into I've forgotten how many months in a row are above the mean, but it's in the hundreds. The last time we had a month that was below the mean was back in the 70s. So every month we're above the monthly average temperature, and this year is on track to be the hottest year on record. So that's the bad news, and that's the bad news out of the way. We'll hit into more better news stories now. And the next story that I saw was an interesting one, I thought. And I don't know what you think about this one, John, but basically the Pentagon is after unveiling the military's response to climate change. And this happened at an event in South America, where the Defense Secretary, Chuck Hagel, met with the defense ministers for the Americas, basically all the American countries, and they all discussed climate change and their responses to it. And of course, if you think in terms of the military, not just the American military, but the military of all countries, climate change has got to have a big impact on them because it leads to regional conflict. You get resource shortages, resource constraints. Several of the Middle Eastern conflicts that we've seen happening have been as a result of, for example, the unrest in Iran a couple of years ago was as a result of an increase in the price of chicken. You know, unintended consequences, but that was a result of climate change. Shortages of water can lead to regional conflicts as well. We're going to start seeing a lot more climate refugees, lots of issues for naval bases that are on the coast with floodings and things like that. So humanitarian issues that the military get involved with as well are going to increase. So big consequences for the military, and it's interesting to see the military in the Americas getting up, taking notice, and starting to make plans for these kinds of issues?
I think it is fascinating and probably very necessary. It may be it may help in areas that are not related to climate change, that we don't know are related to climate change. For example, there's drought conditions in California now, which could lead to issues with the military having to defend water rights, just on a local basis, but also on a more larger basis, since California supplies much of the food to not just the nation, but other parts of the world. I think this one is. Who knows if all this will pass, all the House and Senate and be signed. But the real thing that I think people are worried about is if there is climate change and it keeps continuing to be warm, and New York is underwater, what happens to that epicenter of financial activity for the world? And what is the military supposed to do? So it gets everybody rallied around it. And I think that's it's probably good to think about it. I just don't think people have enough knowledge about what to do with it, and there has to be some planning, some long-term planning about what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as you say, it's good to see them sitting up and taking notice. The other side, you mentioned the California drought. Other things that raises that may have an impact on the military is A, the increase in the incidence of wildfires. And B, because of the lack of rain, you're getting hydroelectric power reducing, and there are also consequences for thermal generation. So thermal generation is the likes of gas, coal, and nuclear, because they use massive amounts of water in their cooling systems. And if you have reduced access to water, you've reduced generation, ability. So California is going to have issues around power generation potentially, and also wildfires, and both of these things have potential consequences for the military as well.
You're right, and the wildfires have already. It's been the last couple of years of intense wildfires, especially around the Yosemite area, which is a national park, of course, but around the perimeter of the rim there. It could be the whole mountains near Los Angeles, which is near the Grapevine, which is a very hot area. I heard that we might make that a national park, or maybe we did. It was a dream for us, so it kind of passed me there. But yes, it has a huge impact. Also, California tends to be anti-nuclear, and so there is a power generation issue because everyone wants to do sustainable. And nuclear could be that, but again, they've got to figure out that the resources needed to power nuclear plants and what the water that's going into it and what kind of water comes out of it.
Sure. We'll keep going because that brings us nicely into the next story, which is an interesting one. Apparently, Lockheed did announce during the week a breakthrough on nuclear fusion energy. And now we get announcements on nuclear fusion, once or twice a year for the last 10 years. There's been someone coming up with some new fusion breakthrough. The difference with this announcement is it's Lockheed. I mean, if it were some small lab somewhere in the middle of nowhere, you'd kind of go, yeah, right, and expect to hear nothing more from it. But when it's somebody like Lockheed making an announcement, you sit up and take notice because they're a serious organization with significant budget. They've made an announcement saying they've made some kind of a breakthrough, but there's little detail in their announcement, and they're asking for help from academia and from industry to come in with them on this. They reckon they'll have a kind of a beta within a year, and they'll have production within about 10 years of truck-sized devices capable of producing 100 megawatts. Now, I'm not sure what to make of this, John. Like I say, there have been so many false starts on fusion in the last 30 years. It's been incredible. But when it's Lockheed, you do wonder.
You do, because they have access to a lot of the American military, and and it's and so they work closely with the government, Defense Department, things like that. Maybe they have some access, but they also the weaponry and things like that. So these power plants could be used for defense. I think I never want to hear the word beta and nuke together. But you said it just like. That said, I think portable power at this scale, at 100 megawatt, that's enough to power a portion of a city.
It is. I mean, if you think of a decent nuclear power plant, your average nuclear power plant comes in around 1 gigawatt, which is 10 by 100. So if these are truck sized and you put 10 side by side, you've got a regular nuclear power plant.
Yeah, and I think the size allows them to get more funding to do it, because one of the biggest issues with military generally is putting power closer to the people wherever they are.
Yep.
And that's been going on with fuel cell technology, and it's driven a lot of the interest in what was cold fusion, which was about 25 years ago. Cold fusion, I say that because it was announced and rejected about a year later. but getting this to this size is amazing. But it's got to be protected. I mean, this is too much power in too small a place for the world we're in right now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if they pull it off, it changes everything. It really does, because, like I say, it's clean. It's low carbon. 100 megawatts is enough for a small city, or a very small city. 2 or 3 of them side by side would power a city. They're transportable, as you say. So yeah, they have military applications as well. They can be deployed. They can power. You make a smaller one, it powers a submarine. You make a larger one, it powers an aircraft carrier. So it's got military and non-military uses. It could be very big.
It could be. In 10 years, it's not that far away. There's always that phrase that you underestimate what's going to happen in 10 years. If we have this in 10 years, it does change a lot of things. It actually provides the ability for cities that are financially constrained because of power, bankruptcies and things like that are happening, to have a viable place where people can work, live, and have a higher quality of life. It definitely does that. That's what power does.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, unlike the likes of coal, you've got no emissions from it. So the pollution from it is negligible.
Just the trucks that drive it for right now, but that'll probably go to another source of power for that.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of power, the next story we saw was this one, which is really great as well. If it comes off, it was this one that these scientists have come up with ultra-fast charging batteries that can be 70% recharged in just 2 minutes, and this is coming out of Nanyang Technical University. I mean, this has got all sorts of applications. As I say, if it comes off, the batteries as well will have a longer lifespan. So they'll go through 10,000 charging cycles as opposed to 500, which is more typical from today's batteries. It's lithium-ion batteries again, as most batteries are these days. Most of the rechargeable ones, but what they've done is they've changed the way they create them. They've used apparently titanium dioxide particles in tiny nanotubes, 1,000 times thinner than the human hair, and this nanostructure speeds up the chemical reactions taking place in the battery, allowing for extremely fast charging. And I mean, the applications for that are many. It takes on fast chargers for cars, for example, on electric vehicles, the fast charging takes 15 to 20 minutes to get to 80% charge. Now, if you change that from 15 to 20 minutes down to 2 minutes, it really makes the process of charging cars far faster. Obviously, it brings them down to, you know, similar to putting petrol into your car, putting gas into your car, as you say in the US. This has always been one of the stumbling blocks of electric cars. It takes so long to charge them, whereas if this comes true, then that goes away.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue people have with using all the devices that they use is power. You know, just at Dreamforce, every single outlet was taken up by somebody trying to charge the device, it's like just plug in here myself actually. I think the interesting thing is that it allows more applications. Because if you're shrinking down the size of what it takes to of the cells that are being charged, you can have different applications, different battery sizes, different lengths. They could be fitting in different places, and then you have that more applications such as different kinds of wireless charging. And we'll get more into the science fiction of Tesla when you can do things like that with charging over the air. But generally, I think it's a good thing. Fast charging is what people need. And then they're more flexible with the technology that they're carrying around with them all the time.
Sure, and while on devices like our phones, we tend to change them every 2 years maybe. So the 500 charge cycles isn't such a big issue, but on something like a car, where you tend to keep a car for 5 years or more, then having a battery with a longer life cycle is a big bonus.
Absolutely. I was looking at. I just like to look at cars because there's so many changes going on with them. Even though from the surface, it doesn't really look like but the BMW i3, and you put a special charging station in, and I think it takes more than 20 minutes to get to 70 or 80%. And then the number of miles you can go is 70 with the lower one, and 100. I don't know. They're all like that. They're all similar, 100 miles. The fast charging it should be better than gasoline. It shouldn't be competitive with gasoline timing. It should be better, so more people go to that technology rather than have a hesitation about it.
The thing about that, John, you're right. You're absolutely right. The thing about that is, though, we're at the very start. We're at the very start of the electric vehicle revolution, and we're going to see more and more things like this new battery technology coming out. The i3 does have I don't know, is it a 70 or 100 mile limit there or thereabouts? But what it does have as well is if you get it, you can add a little 600. Essentially a motorbike.
Kilowatt, yeah. It is their motorcycle engine.
It is, yeah. It doesn't power the wheels. What it does is it charges the battery, and then the battery again it drives the powertrain.
So it's called a range extender or something like that. Yeah.
That's it. Similar to the Chevy Volt has similar technology.
Yeah.
So I think that's a short-term solution to the range anxiety thing. Longer term, what will happen is they'll get the batteries right, and you won't need range extenders. The batteries will actually take you that distance.
Right.
But as I say, we're at the very start of this technology. So we're at kind of the IBM 360s of the computer age with electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think there's another social aspect of this, is that there's a re-densification of population. People are moving more to the cities now. Yeah. And the other thing is that children generally are pushing off getting a driver's license because they've been driven everywhere, because of organized sports or whatever. Their lives are so organized, they're used to it. And that can lead to more expectations from the next generation about what an electric vehicle should look like and how it behaves. And I think that will spur some progress too.
True. We'll keep going. The next story I saw that I thought was interesting was one around quantum computing. And the links to all these stories will obviously be in the show notes afterwards. But this one, It's an interesting story, but the thrust of the story goes the wrong direction. I think the story is how quantum computing, a bit like fusion energy, is one of these things that's always 10 or 15 years away. And as we saw, possibly Lockheed is bringing that a little closer in terms of fusion generation, and now possibly this team from Australia is bringing quantum computers a little closer to us. Where I say this goes the wrong direction is you've got this second part to the headline there talking about an NSA director warning that this technology could break encryption, and that's that's looking at it the wrong way, frankly. If you read down further in the article, the NSA director who did warn about that happens to be a director of a firm which has a technology which can get over that. So he's got kind of skin in the game. And in any case, you can a quantum computer could potentially help break encryption, but then again, you can use quantum encryption, which goes beyond that anyway. So that there are other solutions out there. That's not the issue. The point is, quantum computing is getting closer to being a reality, and that will have all kinds of fantastic implications for how we compute stuff. Computing will become that much faster. So I think this is a huge, huge advance. Again, like the fusion one, if they can make it happen, but it looks like we're getting that bit closer.
I think I look at this from a long time ago. There was biological organic computers that were being developed in research laboratories, and quantum had come up several times, as you said. It's kind of like fusion. I think eventually there's going to be a breakthrough because we kind of do the same kinds of things, same kind of technology, and we do it different ways. And the goal of all of this is a distributed computing, so that it doesn't matter where your computing actually happens. It could be in a cloud device, things like that, and it should be a very seamless experience to get the data or insights that you want. To get that, you need a lot more power. It's not going to be in memory is not the answer. It goes beyond that. It's into calculations and things like that. And the NSA, well, if the NSA can't crack these things, I mean, they're just going to be irrelevant. It's kind of what they do. And there's an NSA in every foreign country, and that's every defense-like organization has to have the ability to keep ahead of technology and do it within the social constructs that are expected in a global economy and global network.
True. And they'll always buck against anything that threatens their ability to break encryption anyway. They'll throw the scary stories out there, the boogeyman under the bed kind of thing.
Yeah, the iPhone. I mean, it's a boogeyman. Yeah, it's humorous, but it's serious too.
Yeah, it's what they do. They have to do something to earn their keep, I guess.
Yeah.
The next one, changing tack, I guess, a little bit into kind of the Internet of Things space. I saw this story about how this company August have got this smart lock, which apparently ships on Tuesday, which costs about $250, which is significant for a lock. It fits into your old lock on your door. So if you fitted this on your front door, for example, you're not replacing your key. So if, for example, first of all, it connects to your phone using Bluetooth. So you can walk up to your door, and if you have an Android phone, you have to take it out of your pocket and flash it in front of it. If you have an iPhone, you can leave it in your pocket. The ability to leave it in your pocket is coming to Android shortly. But anyway, what it is you can walk up to your door and it recognizes you via your phone and unlocks your door for you. Now, if your phone is dead, you can still use a key. So it doesn't do away with the keys, but you don't need a key unless your phone is dead or you forgot your phone. So it's interesting. If you have your phone, you don't need to bring your keys with you. But even more interesting is you can set up geofences, plus you can also assign the ability to open the door to people who have other phones. So if you have a guest staying for a couple of days, you can, set their phone up so that their phone opens it as well. You can set your spouse up as well, that they're an owner, so that both of you can assign spare keys to people. And those spare keys, when you set them up, can be set up for a set period of time. So you can say, okay, John is here, he's visiting, he's here for the next 2 days, so let him in and out using his phone for the next 2 days, and after that he's locked out again. So things like that, it gives a lot of convenience. I don't know if it gives any extra security. If your phone is stolen, you can go on the website and disable your phone's access to the house. So there is a bit of extra security on it, I guess, from that perspective. There's extra convenience, but it's $250 per lock. I don't know, John, what do you think? What do you make of this kind of thing?
I don't think they should be pitching security. I mean, obviously that's what people think a key does, but I mean, it's really just a deterrent. It's not insurance by any way. It's just a deterrent so that you have some level of safety, which is why people get more and more locks, because they feel more safe. But then there's windows and things like that. I think I am this person who is very annoyed with the key system because you have to carry them around. I mean, you can lose them if you're traveling, you're coming back. It's just like the convenience of giving it to somebody. It gives you no data about who's entering your house or not. But with this technology or the advancements in this direction, it does. You could tell when your kids are getting home. You can reprogram it when necessary. You can still use the key if you're there. But I think that everything like this, every device, everything should have some kind of data behind it, and the data is what makes it more viable. And $250 is not. It's not any. There are a lot of locks that cost that much.
Right.
The locksmith is probably going to be more expensive, but if you're the same one, you can probably use it yourself. I would worry about it. I would worry about the flakiness of Bluetooth and your phone connections and things like that at certain points. I'd worry about rain and weather conditions and what that does to the lock. But other than that, I think this is the right direction to go. Everyone likes it. Everyone has more convenience over what you do in a hotel room than they do with a key at home.
That's true, actually. That's a good point. And you're right. The data aspect of it is fascinating. And they don't mention that in the article, so I'm not sure how much access they're giving to the data. But if they don't, because of what you say, I mean, it's absolutely true, somebody else will. So I think, I think that's a good point. And it goes along with the Nests and the more and more connected devices that are coming into the home. And speaking of that, the next story that we came across, or that I came across, was this one about this thing called BeMode. And this BeMode device, or application actually, it's not a device, which is where it gets really interesting. Well, it's kind of a combination. What it does is it takes your old phone, potentially, you can install this on an old phone, and instead of throwing the phone out, you can install the application and have the phone be your thermostat. So instead of going out and buying a Nest, you take your old phone, you install this application on it, and stick it on the wall. Now, you have instructions here. It goes onto a back plate that connects into the phone, and it uses a connector, either a micro USB for an Android type phone, or a lightning cable going into or a 30-pin going into an iOS one. So it connects into an old phone, and basically what it does is it uses the compute ability of the phone and saves you from having to go and buy an extra device, something like a Nest. Now, as I say in the article, if you don't have an old spare phone, they'll supply you with one, and then it costs a little extra. But if you do have an old phone lying around, it's a nice way to get a smart thermostat without having to shell out the full amount for a Nest. So I thought that was a cute little one.
Cute is right. It's a Kickstarter project, right?
Yeah, exactly.
it makes you happy, and that's about it. Because it is, everyone has old phones.
Yeah.
They tend to pass them down to other people in their family or cousins or whatever, but why not repurpose it? And if you ever look at a thermostat, like what's behind the wall, it's just a couple wires that are sticking out there. It's not that, unless you have zone controlled things, it's not that difficult. But I think for the purpose of a thermostat, you always want to go to a single purpose device, and I'd always worry about what the locks are on the phone because they're so inconsistent. For example, you might not be able to do this. I'm not sure, but it seems like whenever I try to use a wireless part of a phone that has no SIM card in it, it doesn't work. But the SIM card is what you need, and the telcos own the access with the SIM card.
Right.
So it's just something that mentally I'd have to work around. But I think that if they have to position this more than a thermostat replacement, more than a Nest, because it is basically the supercomputer that's now on your wall, and it has to be able to do more than just change the temperature when it's to make you comfortable. There's got to be something more to it.
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. And sticking with this kind of IoT and wearables space, it's interesting. The whole smartwatch area is really exploding. I mean, we're seeing smartphone or smartwatches coming from Samsung, from LG, from Apple apparently sometime next year, and so on and so on and so on. And now the artist will.i.am has come out with one as well called the Pulse smartwatch. Basically, it looks a little odd. I don't know if you can make it out there in the photograph, but it's a cuff as opposed to a watch. You don't actually need, unlike the Samsungs, unlike the Apples, etc., you don't actually need to couple it with a phone because it's got a SIM card, so it's got the phone built into the actual cuff itself. It's quite large, it's quite thick, it's about 1/4 inch thick apparently. And you can make, as you can see there, you got a dial pad. You can make calls on it. I don't know. John, what do you make of the whole smartwatch space to start with?
Well, on this one in particular, will.i.am did announce it at Dreamforce, and it got a lot of attention. Having the chip, the phone chip inside the watch is the real difference here. But I think LG has one also, and the other thing is battery. But the most important thing of all these things is, can you? will.i.am may be able to do that, but can you, as a personality, create a fashion statement, and have people wear it as a fashion statement? And how fast can you adjust to this consumer scale over their changes in fashion taste? Apple will be a good one to watch here because all the watches may look similar when they first come out, but you can tell 50 million people are going to get them right away. And with this one, it is a fashion statement. I mean, I could totally see wearing this because I just want the chip and more access. But it's early. This is
it. This space is only starting off, and a bit like we discussed about the EVs earlier. We're at the start of that curve, and God knows where it's going to go. But I think early on in this kind of space, you want to be careful about where you put your money, because any of these devices are going to be completely obsolete in 12 months.
Right, but the general trend, I think is right, is you should not have to take your phone out to do certain things. It should be more on you, more aware of it. And so it's not just wearables, it's awareables, aware of what your context is and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's some intelligence that has to be built in. But for right now, it's fashion statement plus speeds and feeds, battery life, and performance.
Yeah. And I mean, again, related to that same kind of space, we saw that Fitbit are coming out with a new device. It's called the Charge. I'm not sure is that related to battery life, but they've got their Fitbit Charge and their Fitbit Charge HR. And the HR basically is it's got an extra heart monitor built into it. It monitors your heartbeat. And I don't think the Charge itself does much more than the Force does. The Force was their device that they brought out last year that they had to take off the market because the nickel on the back of it was causing a reaction with some people. So they did a full withdrawal, a recall, and they stopped selling them. It's a pity because I got the Force, didn't cause me any reaction, so I ignored the recall, and I like it. I have the app on my phone, I have it on my desktop as well, and I use it all the time. I mentioned earlier that I was on crutches, and regular watchers of the show will realize that normally where there's a crutch leaning against the wall here, it's absent today because, you know, today I didn't need to use the crutch, and I'm using them less. I still need to use them to get around quite a bit, but you know I can get around a small distances without the crutches. And what's been fantastic for me using the Fitbit has been the ability to track my steps over the last 10 months because I got it in mid-December last year. So I've seen the amount of steps I'm taking per month go up and up and up. So tracking the recuperation has been really interesting. So it's the whole quantified self movement. I mean, something I've said here before, and you know, relevant to the heartbeat tracking on this app or on this device, the HR, is when you go into a doctor's office and the doctor takes your pulse and takes your blood pressure and you know does a couple of other measurements. Those are point in time measurements, and if you're going into a doctor's office, maybe you have half an hour to get in and get out because you have something else happening, and maybe you're waiting 20 minutes in the waiting room, and you're getting more and more stressed because you've got to get out because you've got another meeting to go to or you've got a call to take or whatever it is. You're in a hurry. You're in a doctor's room. You're stressed already because you're in a doctor's room because maybe you're not feeling well, and is this going to affect me, and do I have the insurance cover, and whatever other stressors are there as well. Your heart rate and your blood pressure are going to be increased just by virtue of the fact that you're in the doctor's office. Whereas if you go into the doctor's office and you pull out an application and say, look, here's my heartbeat over the last 2 months, and here's my blood pressure over the last 2 months, and here's the amount of steps I did or whatever it is, then the doctor has far more data to go on. And it seems to make a lot more sense, I think, that this quantified self-movement is going to lead to far better health outcomes. That's my take on it anyway, John. I don't know what you think.
Well, that's exactly right. If you look at any waiting room in any hospital or doctor's office, there's at least some kind of triage that's happening, like how much, what's the immediacy that you need to treat a certain group of people to make sure that you're treating everyone, getting them healthy. I don't think these things approach the level of what a doctor needs to make those decisions. I think the heart rate monitors are very. It's tough. I mean, it's tough to get a pulse. And I had a Gear Fit, and I like to take my pulse, but it uses light, and it kind of sends some kind of light, I believe. And I'm not sure it was ever accurate. And then there was another one called Life Touch that was actually took the back of your phone, and you could put your fingers on it, and it would take a while. Kind of like the sensors at the gym, when you're on an elliptical machine or a treadmill. I don't think anyone really thinks they're super accurate. It's more just to gauge that you should be moving more or less. I mean, that's generally it. It's kind of a relative scale.
It's a bit like the pedometers. I mean, the pedometers in either this device, the Fitbit, or the ones that hang on your waist, none of them are incredibly accurate. If you actually count your steps and compare them to what they say you did, they're never 100% right. But if you say that the margin of error is consistent, then they give you a pattern that you can work against, I guess.
That's right. To me, these devices for now just tell you that you should not be sitting or working all day because it's not that healthy for you to do that. You should get up once in a while and walk around. That's what it does for me.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be some very good sensors coming out. Sensors are going to get smaller, cheaper, better, and they'll be part of your clothes and they'll be part of your wrist, and they'll get very close very soon. But it's going to be a whole movement that's tied in, and I think Fitbit's in a good place for that to tie in with everything else because it's open, as opposed to like these the LG things that aren't. Well, it's like the Google L initiative. That's a pretty good initiative.
Yeah, yeah. And again, we're at the bottom of that curve.
Yep.
seems to be a theme today.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
we got Fusion and Fitbit. So.
and speaking of new technologies and starts of curves, we saw that Apple Pay is launching starting on the 20th of October, next Monday, and Apple have signed up 500 more banks to join in. For now it's US only, but early next year I think they'll bring Europe and probably several other geos on as well. And to me, I get that the Apple market is only a small part of the mobile market in total. It's, I don't know what, it's 10 to 20% depending on the geo. But what it does do, I think, is it gives the mobile payment area a real kick in the ass. It was languishing for a while. Google Pay never really got off the ground. Some of that, I think, was to do with the way Google interacted with the banks. I think Google annoyed some of the banks initially, and that didn't help. Whereas Apple's approach has been different. It's been to bring the banks in. Plus, Apple went with this new standard on mobile payments, which came out earlier in the year, and they've implemented it, and they're using it in conjunction with Touch ID as well, the fingerprint thing. So it's seen as highly secure, so much so that the online retailers are getting the cardholder present rate, even for online transactions. It's seen as that secure by the retailers, or sorry, by the banks. So I think what this will do, you've got that old expression, a rising tide raises all boats. I think what this will do, I think this will raise all of both the Android and the iOS, and I think mobile payments will become pretty much the de facto standard for payments within, what, 2 years?
Yeah, it's probably going to be very quick. There are so much activity in the banking systems around Apple Pay, and I think the Google Wallet was a good first initiative. I mean, to drive some attention around it. But I think the telcos had their own ideas for pay, at least in the U.S., and kind of blocked everything else. This one works with them, or gets around it, or it does something. I still think of it as it's not a problem that most people will have. It's solving a problem that they don't have. For example, people are fine paying cash and making the lines get longer and things like that because it's really they're just doing a transaction. Or they write checks, but there's fewer and fewer checks now.
Yep.
And this is going to be good. What I think it really does, though, is makes it so that if you have a choice between an Apple device and an Android device, and you see this Apple initiative everywhere, it is a differentiator that will make you get that Apple phone.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Although I think Google will get on board as well. That they'll step up their Google Pay, as a result. And I think in 18 months to 2 years time, I think it'll be equal on both sides. I want to think anyway. For me, for example, I'm going to be in the US next week, and the first thing I do when I get off the plane in the US is I hit an ATM and I get out some cash. For paying taxis and stuff like that. Whereas if I can pay with my phone, it's going to make life so much easier. There's less cash to carry around. I just touch the payment device in a store, hopefully in taxis, or I'll go with Uber if not, or whatever else it is. I want to get away from carrying cash, and if possible, get away from carrying cards. And if I can do it with my phone, fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And it's so convenient to have that kind of Uber style checkout that you just don't worry about it, the transaction. And I think maybe that's the real future is not with an app on a phone, but it's embedded in the stores in your phone or whatever your technology is. So you don't even have to go through a checkout. It just knows that you're leaving the store with these goods, and it rings you up. I mean, that's kind of see that with the self checkouts, which are getting more and more popular. I mean, just more and more use, I should say. But there's another company that a lot of people have been talking about lately called BeMode, which is paying your friends, and it's just an app that.
Oh yeah. I read something about that. Go on.
Yeah, it's like if I wanted to pay you, $10 or something like that, or you need to borrow $10, I can just, use the app and just pay you. Our bank accounts are all connected. There's no fee at all, really. It's just a wire transfer. Kind of takes all that friction away from even like a PayPal transaction, which is multi-step and things like that. But they'll have some ways to go on, probably on security and things like that. But if you're talking about, well, you want to pay for something, I mean, this is not a bad way to do it.
Nice.
As opposed to just give money to your friends. It could be they have maybe bigger aspirations.
Yeah. Speaking of Google, as we were, they announced this week their latest version of Android 5, and I haven't got the link here, but Apple also announced iOS 8.1, which is I think releasing on Monday. So everyone's bringing out new mobile software, and along with that, we saw Android has built into Lollipop its new kill switch, which will make phones safer. The sub here says it still needs a bit of work. One thing that they didn't do with Android Lollipop, this new version, was they didn't make the kill switch default on, which I think was a mistake. It's default on the iOS devices. I think they'll probably change that in an update. It seems crazy not to have that default on. But the idea anyway is now, with the latest versions of both Android and iOS, if a phone is stolen, it's possible to just shut it off and brick it, which, when we're talking about using our phones as devices to open our doors, to do payments with, and, on top of, calling taxis and everything else we're starting to use our phones for now, they've become so valuable that if you can't kill the phone immediately it's stolen or lost, then you've got to start getting worried. The ability to put in a kill switch means that they're no longer a target for theft, because as soon as they're stolen, they're just shut down. They're no use to anyone anymore.
I think there's always a market for the kind of technology that as you do the terror parts. There's always going to be. I don't think it's going to stop theft so much, but I think it's good. Google has a lot of catching up to on enterprise grade security, and this is one of those initiatives that gets it more close to the enterprise security. I think what people are realizing, though, that consumer grade security might be even more important, because there's just more things that need to be done. And maybe it's not just a kill switch we need. Maybe this kill switch should go into the accounts, like, just in case. Lock all your accounts that are associated with this phone immediately after your phone is reported stolen. So just you can't do anything, but it's a temporary thing, not sure. So you have to get new cards and things like that. But I think this is good. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Nexus 7, which I have, and the Nexus 9 looks great.
It's a huge device.
Yeah, well, tablets don't seem to be moving up it's stagnant growth, I guess, or just minor growth, but because everyone's doing more on their phones.
Yeah.
But still, it's a great. These are great devices. I do a lot of work on them.
Cool. Yeah. And we'll move on. The next one, we're running out of time, but the stories are all great. The next one I saw, we're moving more into the communications space now, and there was two interesting stories there. Mimosa Networks have unveiled a technology for super fast broadband wireless networking, and this is wireless networking not within the home, but to the home. So it's the likes of the wireless internet service providers, and they've come up with a way of making it, that much faster, so that it now approaches fiber speeds and fiber to the home speeds. And then Samsung, on connectivity as well, Samsung have demonstrated a record-breaking 7.5 gigabits per second 5G speed. And this is cellular now, so it's not Wi-Fi we're talking at this point. We're talking cellular. So while many phone networks, are still rolling out their 4G networks, Samsung have gone ahead and demoed a 5G network, and they demoed it in a moving vehicle, moving at 100 kilometers an hour, so about 60 miles an hour. And they did handoff from tower to tower, and they maintained speed along the way. So 7.5 gigabits per second, when you compare it to 4G, 4G is in the megabits per second, and the 5G we're looking at gigabits per second. So we're talking a couple of orders of magnitude speed bump there. Gigabits per second to your handset, John.
Oh, I'm waiting for that day. I would love that. That's faster than.
That's way faster than fiber to the.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the biggest problem with the Samsung that I would see is that once a telco gets a hold of something like that, and I don't know which telco owns that bandwidth to do this, is that they'll probably start splitting that signal up so that you just get a little faster, but just more people are using it, and so it's everyone's going to get another 10 meg per second, but just more people have it, and I think that's sad. I think we need to have faster access because there's just more data-driven applications that people are using.
And we need larger data plans as well. I mean, the data plan I have here on my Movistar account, I think caps out at 2 gigabits per month, which is crazy. I blow through that in no time.
Yeah, 1.5 seconds, and you'll be done. But if you can imagine, this is like downloading the Library of Congress in a second or whatever. I mean,
but everything's going video nowadays. I mean, so video consumes enormous amounts of bandwidth.
Right, and 4K video. Yeah, there's always going to be a need for more data. But we need to have more access. It's just true.
Have you heard of Parkinson's law?
No.
So Parkinson's law was initially crafted or came up with to do with highways in the US, and basically it says that the amount of traffic increases to meet the size of the road. So you build bigger roads, you get more traffic.
Yes.
So same thing with bandwidth. I think it holds incredibly true. The bigger the pipe, the more data will shove down through it.
Exactly, and hopefully it's good data.
Good, and that's a beautiful segue into the next story, John. Thank you for that.
You must be setting me up well here.
The Anon Abox. This is a Kickstarter campaign that came up. It's a device that reroutes data through the Tor network. It's a fabulous little idea. It's a tiny little box that you put just behind your router, be it a cable router or a modem or whatever. So you plug in your router, and all your traffic from your internal network at home, or if you're in a business, from your business, it goes through this before it comes in through this and is anonymized, or goes out through this and is anonymized. So basically, it keeps all your information private. I think, if I remember correctly, it's $50 to get one through the Kickstarter campaign. They got $300,000 within 48 hours when they put it up. It's already proven. They've built lots of them already, but for kind of friends and family and for different campaigns around the world. But now they've decided, well, this has been so successful and so many people love it, let's just commercialize it. And hence they went for the Kickstarter to put a commercial side of it in place, and then to do a manufacturing run. It seems like a lovely little idea. I went out and got one straight. Well, didn't get one. I pledged for it straight away. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, John?
Oh, I think Tor is a great project. It's unfortunate that there were some minor, I guess. I don't know, who knows how minor they are. Breaches in a couple months ago, which is probably the time that they're working on this. But overall, I think this is a great idea. People do want to have some anonymous traffic.
Privacy. People want privacy. It's a basic human right.
Yeah. The device itself, I'm not sure of the engineering behind it, if it has an address or not that's traceable. But the Tor network is so many layers of onions that in an onion, it should be good.
And they're open sourcing the software on it as well.
Oh, good. I think it's the right way to go. I think that it would be very popular. Hopefully, it's not popular with the worst parts of society, but it probably will be.
It probably will.
But overall, if you believe that people are 80 or 90% good all the time, then these are the things that says you just want to be anonymous, and people should have that right to have that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of open source, I saw this story as well, which I thought was quite nice. The Facebook have open sourced their async display kit, it's called. It doesn't actually roll off the tongue very easily, but the async display kit is a piece of software they developed for their paper application, which was a nice application that it was an app that they built which had a beautiful interface basically. This is iOS only, I have to say. But for anyone who wants to develop an iOS application now, they can take this open source software and use it to develop it. And it has apparently it has, I've never used Paper, but apparently it's got a beautiful iOS interface. So it makes the development of iOS and beautiful looking iOS apps far easier for anyone who wants to do so. So I thought that was nice. And the other interesting open source story that I saw was this one, Drone Code. And basically it's a Linux Foundation project aimed at creating an open source platform for unmanned aerial vehicles, for drones essentially. So another nice open source initiative. I'm going to blow past those into the last two stories that I saw because we're running really low on time now. And another Facebook initiative I saw was this one, Safety Check it's called. And I thought this was a pretty interesting one. And what it is basically if there's some kind of natural disaster that happens in an area that Facebook thinks you're in based on your last check-in or based on your IP address or based on whatever, be it an earthquake, Facebook will pop this up on your feed saying, are you safe? And you say either, yes, I am safe, or I'm not in the area. And if you say, yes, I am safe, then that goes on to your feed, and people who are interested in your well-being, they see on your Facebook that you're safe. If there's a problem in your area, they see you're okay. So I thought that was a pretty cool one for them to do. And the last story I thought was interesting was changing tack quite a bit. Was this one, Satya Nadella, the CEO, the new CEO of Microsoft, although I say new, he's been there about 5 months now. He got his ass handed to him last week when he made an unfortunate comment at a conference saying that women should just trust in HR to give them a pay rise. They shouldn't go seeking pay rises. And, you know, there were outraged, and rightly so, outraged comments all over the internet. A lot of people saying he should resign for making such a comment and so on. He didn't. And he sat back and thought about it for a while and consulted within the organization. And what he's come back and done, I think, is quite good. He's come back and rolled out a memo within Microsoft saying that they are going to, within Microsoft, roll out an initiative to make sure that everyone is up to speed on diversity and inclusion within the organization, that this will be not a once-off thing, but a monthly thing. They're going to set keystones and ask people and get feedback, and, you know, basically what has happened is he's realized he's made a big boo-boo. And instead of, as a lot of people said, instead of stepping down, he's gone and turned it into an opportunity to make Microsoft a better place to work. And I think if more people took that kind of an attitude in situations like this, then, you know, we wouldn't have a lot of these kind of issues arising. The diversity and inclusion topic is one that has been rolling around for the last 6 or 8 months at a quite a high level. And I don't know, John, if you agree, but there seems to be more conversation about it, and that can only be a good thing. And the more that this topic bubbles up, the more that it starts to be addressed. And I think Satya's misstep last week is actually turning out to be quite a good thing, at least within Microsoft.
Well, I think it's good across many more boundaries than just Microsoft. This conversation, and to have somebody who's new at the role of the, you know, it's a leading company in the world, one of the most recognizable brands, and I think I don't know what Microsoft's culture is inside, but and his comment was surely poorly received and poorly stated. But he might be saying that to everyone. Don't ask for a raise to anyone. I don't know, but he should not have singled out anyone, and maybe he felt like he was that. I don't know. But
what it was, the genesis of it was that when he was being mentored within Microsoft, or maybe it was before his Microsoft, but when he was being mentored, it was something his mentor said to him as a piece of advice, which he stuck to himself, and it always worked for him. I think that's where he was coming from, but I don't think it's necessarily the same when you've got gender issues there as well.
Well, that's gender issues. What if you just replace the word with, you know, an ethnic group? It would just sound so bad. I mean, so you have to have that kind of gut check as you're speaking. But it happens, and in this case, he did the right thing by, you know, coming back. But I think the problem was not necessarily with all the, it doesn't start with the tech companies. It may end there. It starts earlier, and there's just, you know, in early education, there's just a lack of diversity for the types of, I don't know, it shows that if the math skills are great in girls, for example, but tail off, that's ridiculous. I mean, this is that should not be the case. We should be encouraging science, math, and all for everybody. And if we do that, then we wouldn't have maybe the latter issues to worry about. But because of this, we'll be able to take investment and focus and put it on the diversity all around the world. And I think we'll come out with better companies. The companies that do that will be better off. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing we can accomplish right now.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're making your organization less friendly for women to work in, then you're de facto excluding 50% of the population from working there. I mean, it sounds absolutely crazy. Why would you want to do that? you're then just pulling from 50% of the population where the talent pool is, reduced by half. It makes no sense.
Right. Yeah, I think that, and that's why this is good. The conversation's good. It was brought up in Q&A with Mark Benioff yesterday too, and that no one has the answers right now, but the focus provides us all with a figuring out what the problem is and where it starts, and fixing it at the root and at every point in between the root and the end.
Yeah. All right, John. Listen, we've gone over time as happens often, but not much. It's been really good. Thank you so much for taking part, and thanks to everyone for watching and listening. And we'll be back next week. Next week we'll be doing it slightly differently because I'll be doing it out of a hotel room. But we'll do it anyway, and we'll catch you all at the same time next week. Thanks everyone for watching.